now joining us, he is the Vice President of Communications for the New York Football Giants, Pat Hanlon. Pat, Z-Expert Zach Gelb here, Shovio.com. Thank you for joining me, and how are you?
Zach, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How does it feel to be such a Twitter sensation over the weekend? You know what? You gained all these followers after this disaster weekend, minus the victory for the Giants traveling-wise.
Well, here's what I've told people. You know, when we first, I guess I started tweeting about a year and a half or so ago, and I remember Greg Aiello, who is one of the PR honchos for the league, had been after me he told me, he said, you need to tweet. I said, well, why do I need to tweet? And why do I need to get on Twitter? And he said, because that's where people are. And so finally I decided to do it, and after I got on Twitter, and it's the Giants, my account is the Giants account. And because of that, because it's the Giants account, you know, we got up to 10,000 followers pretty quick. But the getting from 10,000 to 20,000 has been like pulling teeth. So going into the weekend trip, which was supposed to be in Minnesota, the followers were a little over 17,000. And as a result of what happened this weekend, we got up to, we're almost at 20. So we jumped to, 22, 2,500. And I said, I think I even tweeted this, that I wondered what it was gonna take to get a nice bump in terms of Twitter followers. And it took a blizzard in Minnesota, like they've never seen. And it took Brett Favre missing his first game in 200 and whatever the hell it was, 97 games. So that's what happened.
The best tweet from you was definitely the one about playing in the Miami Stadium, since you had a good relationship, since you let them use your practice facility. Did you ever think when the Giants let the Dolphins practice in their practice facility, did you ever think the Jets were going to be so annoyed by that move?
Listen, I think, John Mara, our owner, who received the request from the Dolphins and allowed them to work out in our facility, in retrospect, he said last week that if he had to do it over again, he would have called Woody Johnson and asked him if he had any issues with that. Frankly, I don't see it as a big deal either way. It's not like we moved out of our office.
I agree.
So that the Dolphins could set up shop, and just so people understand, what we have a beautiful full 100-yard field, indoor field house. And Miami came up early. They actually came up early so they could go see the play Lombardi on Broadway on Friday night, because their owner thought that would be a good thing for the team to do. And so on Friday and Saturday, the Dolphins literally pulled their buses up to the curb of the field house, got off the bus, went in, practiced, got back on the bus, and went back to their hotel. So all we did was give them a field, and the fact is that regardless of where they practiced, they would have practiced both days anyway. So, but in retrospect, John Mara wished he would have at least given Woody Johnson a heads up on that. And so we'll, if it ever arises again, we'll see. Although, as you just said, if we're going to relocate a game, let's go to Miami. They owe us one.
And some unfortunate news for the Giants today, actually. Steve Smith will be put on IR. That will end his season. How do you think this will impact the Giants' offense, and how do you think Coach Coughlin will replace the Pro Bowl wide receiver?
Listen, our wide receiver group has been, and unfortunately has been rotating over the course of the last month or so. Because Steve had been out for 4 games with back injury that he had, had worked himself back in a position where he could actually go out and play, which he did, until he got hurt the other day. Hakeem missed a couple games before coming back this weekend. We've lost, we lost Ramses Barton early on. But what's happened is the guys that, in the course of all those injuries, the players that we signed, Derek Hagan, Michael Clayton, Devin Thomas, the new guys that we brought in, they've now been here for about a month. So early on, there was really no way to incorporate them into the offense, although Hagan a couple weeks ago had a nice game and caught 7, 8, 9 balls. But there was really no way to incorporate those guys. And Hagan was able to do that because he's been with us. Michael Clayton and Devin Thomas have not been with us, so they've been getting acclimated to our system. And but they've been around here for a few weeks now, so it's not like so Steve Smith going down is a big loss for our offense because of the player that he is. On the other hand, it's not like you're scrambling to fill that position because we've already filled it over the course of the last month, and the guys that we brought in that are new to the system have had several weeks to get used to it. Bottom line is when somebody like Steve Smith goes down, a lot of people have to pick up their game, which they do, and we have gone through a rash of injuries at wide receiver and on the offensive line over the course of the last couple months, and everybody has done the same thing. All our guys have done the same thing, which is to step in and pick up their game, and we have not noticed a drop-off for the most part.
We're talking to Pat Hanlon, the Vice President of Communications for the New York Football Giants. And Pat, let's take you back to Friday. When did you find out that the plane had to land in KC? How'd you find out about that?
Well, actually, on Friday, normally for a road game, we take off. We leave from Newark at 1 o'clock. And on Friday, because of the weather situation in Minneapolis, we actually moved our flight up 3.5 hours because the airline Continental and the weather people were saying, listen, if you leave New York at 9:30, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you'll be able to get into Minneapolis before it's too bad. And we had a couple of flight delays on the ground in Newark, so we didn't leave actually until after 10 o'clock. And we're en route, and even as we're en route, we're going to be able to land in Minneapolis. But apparently a snowplow or a truck or something got stuck on the runway in Minneapolis, which forced us to divert to Kansas City. And in the meantime, while this was all happening, the storm had gotten a whole lot worse, and they shut the whole airport down. So, so now we're in Kansas City, and actually the first few hours in Kansas City, we were there at the airport, hopeful that the Minneapolis airport would reopen, and we'd be able to get back on the plane and fly to Minneapolis. Well, obviously that didn't happen, and so we relocate to Kansas City, to the airport Marriott in Kansas City, and with every intention of getting up first thing on Sunday morning, getting on the plane, flying to Minneapolis, and playing the game as it was originally scheduled, which was for noon Central Time in Minneapolis. Well, that night we find out that there's some concerns about the Metrodome roof in Minneapolis because the snow had piled up on the roof there, and because of the high winds in Minneapolis, the crews weren't able to clear the snow off, so they needed another day to do that. And so on Saturday night, the game was moved to Monday night in Minneapolis. And then when we woke up on Sunday morning in Kansas City, we found out that the roof in Minneapolis had collapsed. And so there was several hours, 2, 3, 4 hours on Sunday morning where we were waiting to hear, okay, where are you going now to play this game? And we got to play the game on Monday because we've got the Philadelphia Eagles coming into our place on Sunday, and we're not going to play Tuesday. We've already shortened what we thought was going to be our normal work week, and so finally it was decided that we would play in Detroit, on Monday night. And Detroit the storm had now moved into Detroit, so we had a small window on Sunday to get into Detroit, and we did. And then the Vikings came in later on the day on Sunday, and we were able to play the game. But it was an adventure. There's no doubt about it.
Just what an unreal weekend. Whether it was the fire alarm going off in the team's hotel, landing in Kansas City, the game's going to be played on Sunday, then the game's going to be played on Monday, it's going to be played at Minneapolis, then it's going to be played in Detroit. What was the mood of the players, and how did they keep their spirits up during this a period of confusion?
The players were great because at a certain point, you have to understand that, listen, all this stuff that's happening, you have no control over it. So you have to wait. You have to wait. You have to wait it out. And you can't get impatient. You can't get frustrated. You can't get overanxious. You just have literally you have to wait. And one of the tenets of football, and actually it's a tenet that we should all live by, is listen. There are things that happen that are completely out of your control, and if you waste zero energy, if you waste more than zero energy worrying about it, then that's your fault. So our players right away understood that this is an unusual situation, and we have no control over it. There was no signs of impatience, no signs of frustration. We just waited. There were periods of hours over the course of the weekend where we waited until the weather cleared up and until people made logistical decisions on what was best. And the players were they were fantastic. They handled themselves extremely well. In fact, on Sunday night when we were in our hotel in Detroit and the team had the night before the game meeting, Tom Coughlin told the guys, listen, I'm proud of the way you guys have handled this whole thing. You've been very professional and been very patient. And now that we know when we're playing and where we're playing, you've got to put all that behind you and start the clock that all those players have. You've got to start the clock now because we're playing a game in 24 hours. And I thought, listen, we came out in the game, and it was obvious that we were slower than we normally are. We're a little bit late weary, a little bit sluggish, because we had not done any football activities for, at that point, 3 days. And but we played ourselves into the game, and the players responded, and they handled themselves very well.
We're talking to Pat Hanlon. He is the Vice President of Communications for the New York Football Giants. And Pat, on Monday night, how weird was it to see Brett Favre not in uniform, and how do you think the Jen Sturger situation will affect his image?
Listen, you never want to go into a game in our business. You don't. I know that from a competitive standpoint, people on the outside assume that, if the star player's missing on the other team, that's good for you. But frankly, as competitors, you always want to play against the best that the other team has to offer. Now, there were enough signals out of Minnesota and out of Brett Favre that he was not physically fit to play that game. So, and Tavares Jackson presents a whole other set of issues. He's a guy that's got a strong arm and he can move around. And so our defense did a heck of a job of getting ready for Tavares Jackson with the understanding that, if history holds the last 20 years, you're probably going to face Brett Favre. So they did a nice job of preparing for both things and both situations, and they executed the game plan well. You know, I don't know the answer to the second question about the whole Jim Sturger issue that Brett Favre has. I don't know what that means. I mean, you know, the league has looked into it. Favre has apparently cooperated with the league. Jim Sturgis has cooperated with the league. Who knows? I mean, that's all you can do at this point, and we'll see. I mean, if you're asking me in the grand scheme of things, ultimately, what I think that this whole incident will have on his legacy, I don't think it'll be very much.
Big divisional matchup this week, the Giants and the Eagles. Many people say that this will decide who wins the NFC East. The Eagles got the best of the Giants a few weeks ago. How do you think the Giants will stop Michael Vick?
Listen, we did a nice job of defensing the Philly offense 4 weeks ago, and that was the last time we lost the game. And so I think, you know, we're going to go into the game trying to do the same kinds of things. Which is the way this guy's playing this year. You are not going to stop him. It's not like you're going to shut him down, but you can contain him if you're disciplined and you understand what they want to get done, and you use your people to the best of your abilities and advantage to stop that. And our guys did a good job of that the last time. Listen, if our offense had played anywhere near what it's capable of playing in the last game, you know, we very easily could have won that game. So our defense played well enough to win in Philadelphia. Our defense has to play that same way again on Sunday, and our offense has to play a whole lot better than it played in Philly. And if that happens, if both those things happen, then we'll win the game.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be such an interesting game. I really think the Giants are going to win this game. And you talked about the defense. The defensive line has improved so much from last year. And this Giants defense just looks like a whole different unit. Pat, I'm going to ask you a quick favor here. We have a 10-second commercial break that we have to hear. Can you that we have to take right here? Can you just stick around with us for a few more minutes?
Yes.
We're talking to Pat Hanlon. He is the Vice President of Communications for the New York Football Giants. We got a lot more to do with Pat, so we'll take this quick commercial break right here, and we'll be back with more sports talk. You're listening to the expert Zach Gelb here on Shovio.com. We'll be right back right after these few words from Shovio.com. And we're back here on the program. The Vice President of Communications for the New York Football Giants, Pat Hanlon, joins us on the phone. And what do you think the difference has been with the new change here on the defensive coordinator? Because the Giants are looking great, especially at the defensive line position.
Listen, I don't, you know, for the people that want to put the blame on Bill Sheridan, who was our defensive coordinator last year, for the way we played, frankly, I don't buy that.
Agreed.
Bill Sheridan's a hell of a coach. He's coaching the linebackers now down at Miami, and you know, it was a combination of a whole lot of things. When you play as poorly as we played in 2009, especially at the end, to the notion that you can point the finger at one human being and say it's his fault is a joke. I mean, it's not one guy's fault. And here's the difference between last year and this year. We're healthy. Osi Umenyiora is 2 years off of knee surgery. Rocky Bernard is healthy. Justin Tuck is healthy. Chris Canty's healthy. You can just go down the list of guys that in 2010 are key players and key figures in our defense, and a year ago they weren't healthy, and today they are, and that's the difference. And the other difference is on the back line, at the safety position, Kenny Phillips is back, and we brought in Antrell Roll and Deion Grant, and those guys are great players. So you put all that together, and that's why we're better. You bring in Perry Fuel, who has great energy, great enthusiasm, and great ideas. And he's got a bunch that, knock on wood, has managed to remain relatively healthy. And that's why we're better.
Two more questions here on the way out. You've been in the league for a long time, and many people say that there will not be football next year. I am one to think that there will be. I'll be the optimist here. Do you think that there's going to be football in 2011?
Yes, I do. And, of course, I know absolutely nothing about the current state of the negotiations, but two things. I think that our commissioner, Roger Goodell, and our chief negotiators, Jeff Pash, has said time and time again that we will get a deal, and it's just a question of when we get a deal. And I think that at the end of the day, everybody, both sides, owners and players, understand what a great thing we have going here, and there's too much at stake to risk that. So I think that yes, to answer your question, I think we will have a new CBA in place.
The Giants open up a great stadium this year. The regular season's coming to an end. I had a chance to go out there and see the new stadium. It's a hell of a place, and I really like what I saw there. What is the reaction that you've heard from players and coaches and fans about the new $1 billion stadium?
It's a $1.7 billion stadium, and we're partners with the Jets, and the two franchises paid to build the stadium. And I think it's a great facility, and I think that all the fans are probably still in the process of getting used to the new building, and I think there's a natural adjustment period and growing period for people to get comfortable in the new building, and I think that any new building continues to evolve and get better, and this building will, and for that amount of money, get better, and then finally, I'm not a big. I don't. People have asked me all season long, what do you think about the new stadium? And my response to that has been, I'm not exactly a stadium guy. I mean, the only thing that makes a home a great home are wins. And so, in that context, this weekend is extremely important in my mind, in that I think a lot of people who have paid a lot of hard-earned money to be in that building want to be able to be in the building when the New York Giants defeated the Philadelphia Eagles in the 14th game of the season with first place in the NFC East on the line. That's what makes a building great to me, when you have those great moments. Giants Stadium was a great building for Giants fans because of 1986 and because of 1990 and because of 2000 and because of a lot of other great moments that happened in that building. And we've had a couple great moments so far this year, but the greatest moment that we can have would be to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in the final regular season home game to take over first place in the NFC East. That's what makes a great building, winning.
You're exactly right. Pat Hanlon, thank you so much for hopping on the program with me today, and also best of luck to you Sunday versus the Eagles.
All right, Zach. Zach, tell your old man I said hello. Does he still have a job?
Yeah, he's working at WFAN. He produces this show, but he's too fancy to be joining us tonight. He's with Doug Herzog of MTV. So you know what, Pat? You did a better job than my father would ever have done.
Don't say that. I don't want to have to pay that back. All right, take care. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I love my father.
All right,
I'm just
Zach.
messing. Be well.
All right. Good luck. Bye.
Thank you. Pat Hanlon there of the New York Football Giants, the Vice President of Communications. Great job there by Pat.